Hello, everybody. My name's Gary, and welcome. I'm with you once again. This is going to be a conversation trying to do a dialogue with a gender critical person. Now, this person goes by the name Kit Critical, down below, and I'm hoping to try and negotiate a better dialogue because I think that even though I don't think it's a debate, let's call it conversation around trans rights has gotten a little bit toxic. A little bit toxic is an understatement in my personal opinion. And I think that there's got to be a better way to do this rather than just call each other names and go through the same old arguments again and again and again and again until something bad happens. So I'm going to try and reach out in a different way. I am not going to call King Critical a dev. He's gender critical. That's a label that he's invented himself. And I'm going to ask him that he does not call me a TRA or trans right activist. I do not claim that label. It's not a label that I personally think suits what I stand for. My own label that I stand for is equal rights or civil rights activist. I'm for civil rights of any minority because I myself am a minority. I have a disability. Such it's made me more aware or more probably keenly attuned to civil rights issues, especially when they start to affect outgroups, and especially since I was a young kid, I've been interested in how outgroups are monitored. For example, when I was growing up, it was the Irish, and then it was the gay people, it was LGBT people, and then it was Muslims, and then now it's trans people. There's always an outgroup that the media has to pick on. And there's two videos of King Criggles that I would like to respond to. The first one is he talks about the Brianna Gay incident. For those who don't know or live in a different country or don't live in Britain, there was a trans teen a girl who was killed for being trans. Now, King Critical did a video saying that people can't say automatically that this was a hate crime. Now, he did not put anything else up saying that he walked this back or he has announced that he was wrong, which would be a perfectly reasonable thing to do when you give him more data. Instead, what he did was say nothing. Now, he could have corrected himself and said, you know what, Brianna Gay, because this is actually what's happened, is a hate crime now. And maybe we, on the gender critical side, have to got to think about our rhetoric and what we use. Because, again, things you say, even if you think they're reasonable, if they have negative consequences, i.e. you think a minority group is doing harm, that is going to have a exponential violent effect. It's the same thing that we saw with Muslims. Anti-Muslim violence went up substantially when people were saying there was anti-Muslim stories in newspapers and people were saying anti-Muslim stuff. Now that has gone away and now it's trans people again. Or it's trans people now. And it's the exact same thing that anti-trans violence has exponentially gone up. I think people said it's triple the amount. So I would say to King Critical, does that not give you pause to the things you say and do? That what you say and do is having a negative effect on people's lives. Now you keep on saying the negative effect that trans people are having on women's lives, which you've failed to prove, but there is a demonstrable through line that we can show of what you're saying and the people that you support and the things that you are saying having a negative effect in the amount of violence being perpetrated on a outgroup. So how do you justify that? Again, I look forward to your video if you do one. Or if you just want to do comments, that's fine. Next, he talks about media. Now, he talks about the trans media. Now, he talks about the fact that there are sometimes negative stories. But what he doesn't talk about is framing. Because framing is important in any story, is how it's framed. Because any story should not, no trans person is saying we should have it all positive or we should have it all this. Because again, any story worth its soul should look at things from both perspectives and portray it that way. Unless it's an opinion piece. So if it's portraying a story, it should portray what one side is saying, the other side, and let people come to their conclusion based upon the preponderance of the evidence or preponderance of the arguments given. Okay, we on the trans supporting side are not saying that we're expecting every story to be positive, because not every story is going to be positive. What we are saying is framing, how it is framed. So let's say, for example, the whole Isla Bryson thing. For those who are not in the UK, there was a recent thing in Scotland where a trans woman by the name of Isla Bryson was mistakenly put into male prison rather than being isolated like any rapist should be. And by the way, this is not a male rapist thing, but any rapist is usually distanced to Gen Pop for numerous reasons. Usually it's because to stop violence against themselves, and also it's to stop temptation of raping, because again, it just is something. Now, instead of saying this is what should have happened to her, this is being used to say, well, this is the problem with trans rights and stuff like that, rather than Isla Bryson is somebody who went through the cracks in the system, and rather than talking about how to sew up these cracks, it's been used as a hammer. Now, that's a framing issue, because instead of being framed as there was a failure in the legal system in Scotland, it's been framed as here's the problem with gender identity, which is wrong sort of framing. Why can't we talk about legal issues? Why can't we talk about a failure of the legal system? Why did that happen? Explore it. That's a more rational way to do it, isn't it? To attack this system that actually allows that to happen, rather than, I don't know, the acceptance that trans people exist and should be given equal rights to everybody else. But if we want to talk about framing, let's talk about another framing. There was recently in The Guardian, and I think Jesse Gender to talk about this, where there was a Tory councillor, Tracy, who was in the women's restroom, and a trans woman, she assumed was a trans woman, actually was a trans woman, a trans woman came up, we started talking, and as she was leaving, they said, you're not going to wipe your hands, and she, according to this Tory councillor, said, I'm going to wipe it on my penis. She didn't say that. What she actually said is, I'm going to wipe it on my jeans. Where's the journalistic integrity and remorse in that story? And it's stuff like that, all like that. How J.K. Rowling is a victim, the billionaire victim, or somebody who has written stories about how dangerous trans people are, has written stories about the much debunked theory that trans people, are organophiles, a term that you use, which is bollocks. That trans people are just doing it because it's trendy, or it's some sort of social contagion. Things that don't mean anything. These things have been debunked pretty seriously by people who actually know what they're talking about. Actual doctors, medical professionals, people with PhD in the end of the names. And the thing is, if your side was correct, Trinket, surely there would be medical evidence to back it up. There would be medical things to say, hey, these are the medical evidences. They're not taking account A, they're not taking account B, they're not taking account C, they're not taking D. You could produce to me right now, and again, I've seen you before say that I don't know anything about science. You don't need to. I don't know anything about science. I can still provide articles to support my position that, again, the media tends to frame things negatively when it wants to distract us from the main story. Because isn't it funny that when the whole story about the corruption in the Tory party was coming out, and Rishi Sunak's disastrous, Brexit deal for Northern Ireland, and all the problems with the protocol, and the problems with the union, and the strikes and stuff like that. Isn't it funny that the thing that they want us to be concerned with is a trans woman in a singular prison in Scotland? Isn't it funny that they want us to talk about that? See, they distracted us that quickly from more important stories. Again, trans women should have equal rights to women's spaces. Trans men should have equal rights to women's spaces, and neither should face oppression, insult, assault, or anything like that by entering those spaces, or fear, because that is bigotry. And again, I love this framing of it. Well, trans people expect special rights. No, they expect to be given journalistic integrity. That's what they expect. Again, I don't expect everything to go my way in life. But what I do expect is that journalists to do their goddamn jobs. You've yet to describe why a journalist not doing their job should not face the same criticism of if a milkman didn't do his job properly, or if a plumber didn't do his job properly, or if an electrician didn't. What you're asking the trans people to accept is somebody not doing their job properly. And it's not that we expect everything to be positive. No, we just expect you to tell the actual correct story. That's all we're saying. Anyway, this is Gary.